The summons arrived with the kind of politeness that felt dangerous. A soft chime echoed across the office floor, followed by a floating notification that hovered in the air in front of him like a polite ghost. It displayed his name in crisp alien script and human letters side by side, glowing faintly with a calm blue light. Beneath it, a single sentence waited. Please report to my office immediately. This meeting is not related to work. For 3 full seconds he forgot how to blink. In an interstellar corporation where every meeting was about work, the phrase, not related to work, felt like a cosmic anomaly. People didn't get summoned for non-work reasons. They got summoned for evaluations, audits, disciplinary hearings, and performance recalibrations. They got summoned when something had gone wrong. He stared at the message as if it might change its mind. Around him, the office continued its usual rhythm. Humans typed on translucent keyboards. Aliens of various shapes and textures glided, floated, or walked between holographic terminals. A tall reptilian analyst adjusted his data visor. A cluster of luminous beings whispered in harmonic frequencies near the coffee dispenser. Nobody seemed to notice his personal crisis. But he felt it anyway. His mind began constructing worst-case scenarios at the speed of light. Maybe he had violated an alien regulation without realizing it. Maybe he had smiled incorrectly during a meeting. Maybe his last report had contained a statistical anomaly that triggered an automated ethics investigation. Maybe his existence itself had been flagged as inefficient. He swallowed. Then his thoughts drifted to her. She was not just his boss. She was the kind of being people lowered their voices around without realizing it. Elegant, composed, impossibly precise. Her species had a reputation for emotional neutrality and intellectual dominance. They didn't waste words. They didn't waste time. They definitely didn't waste meetings. She rarely called anyone into her office personally. When she did, people usually came out looking like they had just been interrogated by a friendly but unstoppable machine. And now she was calling him in. Not about work. He stood up slowly, trying not to attract attention. His chair slid back with a soft hum, far too loud in his ears. He straightened his jacket, checked his reflection in the glass panel beside his desk, and immediately regretted it. He looked like someone about to be fired. As he walked toward the central elevator shaft, he felt eyes on him. Or maybe he imagined them. With aliens, it was hard to tell. Some species didn't even have eyes in the traditional sense. Still, there was a strange feeling in the air, like the office itself knew something he didn't. The elevator opened silently and carried him upward through layers of shimmering architecture. Transparent walls revealed the vast interior of the corporate megastructure, floating platforms, rotating gardens, streams of data flowing like digital rivers. Normally he found it inspiring. Today it felt like a courtroom. When the doors opened, her office awaited him. The space was larger than any human executive office he had ever seen, but it felt minimalist rather than luxurious. Walls curved smoothly without corners. Light sources had no visible origin. Holographic displays floated in quiet formation, rearranging themselves in subtle patterns as if responding to thoughts rather than commands. She stood near the center of the room. For a moment, he hesitated at the threshold. She turned. Her posture was perfect, as always. Tall, graceful, with features that were undeniably alien yet strangely familiar in their symmetry. Her eyes reflected data streams that didn't exist in the physical world. Her expression was neutral, but something about her stillness felt different. "Enter," she said. Her voice was calm, precise, and slightly melodic. It was the same voice she used during board meetings, project briefings, and crisis management calls. But today, there was a fractional delay before the word finished forming. He stepped inside. The doors closed behind him with a sound that was far too final. For several seconds neither of them spoke. He stood there, hands awkwardly at his sides, waiting for the inevitable explanation that would confirm his fears. She watched him in silence, her gaze focused not on his face but slightly above it, as if analyzing invisible data. Then she moved. With a subtle gesture of her hand, The air in front of her erupted into light. A massive holographic display unfolded across the room. Graphs appeared. Charts bloomed. Lines intersected. Numbers scrolled. Symbols he had never seen before arranged themselves into complex geometric patterns. Some labels were in alien script. Others were in English. He recognized one word immediately. His name. It appeared at the center of the projection, surrounded by layers of data. His heart stopped. She cleared her throat, an oddly human gesture. "Before we proceed," she said carefully, "I must clarify that this meeting is not disciplinary in nature." He exhaled too quickly. "That's good," he managed. She tilted her head slightly, as if evaluating the concept of good. "This meeting," she continued, "is the result of a mandatory procedural requirement initiated by my species' corporate governance framework." That sounded less good. She gestured again, and the hologram zoomed in on a particular chart. A bright line pulsed across a graph labeled Interpersonal Synergy Index. He stared at it. "I do not understand," he said honestly. "That is expected," she replied. She moved closer to the display, her fingers tracing the air. As she did, additional layers of information unfolded. "According to interspecies organizational law," she said, "any prolonged professional interaction between individuals of different species that produces statistically significant emotional variance must be evaluated." He blinked. "Emotional variance?" "Yes." She paused. Then she looked directly at him. "The evaluation is commonly referred to as a bonding assessment." His brain refused to process the words. Bonding. Assessment. Together. He felt like someone had tried to install alien software into his mind using a hammer. I thought," he began, then stopped. She watched him with quiet intensity. "You thought you were being terminated," she said. He froze. "Yes," he admitted. She seemed to consider this. "That assumption," she said slowly, "is illogical." He almost laughed, but the sound got lost somewhere between fear and disbelief. She raised her hand again, and the hologram transformed. Now he could see columns labeled things like Emotional Response Frequency, Unpredictability Quotient, Behavioral Influence Radius, and, disturbingly, Positive Neural Disruption. Each column contained data points. All of them were connected to him. "I have prepared a presentation," she said, with what sounded dangerously close to pride. The hologram expanded further. Color-coded diagrams formed around his name. A three-dimensional model appeared, rotating slowly. It looked suspiciously like a heart. "This," she said, "is your emotional performance profile." He stared at the glowing structure in silence. Somewhere in the depths of his mind, a single thought formed with terrifying clarity. He was not about to be fired. He was about to be evaluated for something far worse. And judging by the size of the hologram, she had been preparing for this meeting for a very long time. He stood there longer than was socially acceptable, but social acceptability had clearly stopped applying the moment a holographic heart started rotating around his name. She waited. Not impatiently. Not kindly either. Just, precisely. Finally, he spoke. "Is this some kind of joke?" Her eyes shifted slightly, as if searching a database for the definition of the word. "My species does not engage in humor during regulatory procedures," she replied. That did not help. She extended her hand again, and the hologram reorganized itself. The heart dissolved into layered graphs. New titles appeared in clean, unforgiving text. Phase 1 Observation. Phase 2 Correlation. Phase 3 Compatibility Projection. He felt his throat go dry. "For how long?" he asked slowly. "Have you been observing me?" She answered immediately. 432 standard work cycles." He stared at her. "That was more than a year." He tried to speak, failed, tried again. "You've been tracking my emotions for a year?" "Correct." Her tone suggested she might as well have said she had been tracking office supplies. She stepped closer to the hologram, her fingers moving through layers of data with effortless control. Initially, she said, your presence produced no measurable anomalies. Your productivity metrics were average. Your behavioral patterns were consistent with human norms. That was almost comforting. However, she continued, and the word felt like a warning. After prolonged interaction, irregularities began to manifest. A new chart expanded. A jagged line rose sharply. She highlighted it. This, she said, corresponds to the moment you laughed during the quarterly strategy meeting. He blinked. That was a joke, he said. Someone spilled coffee on a translation drone. Yes, she said. The drone's malfunction was statistically insignificant. Your reaction was not. She enlarged another dataset. This, she said, corresponds to the moment you offered to assist me with a task that was not assigned to you. I was just being polite. Politeness is not a recognized productivity driver in my culture. She paused. Then she added, almost thoughtfully, yet it produced a measurable increase in my cognitive efficiency. He didn't know how to respond to that. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed two overlapping curves. One was labeled with her species designation. The other was labeled with his name. At several points, the curves intersected. These intersections, she explained, represent moments of synchronized emotional fluctuation. He stared at the glowing lines. Those are feelings? Approximation, she corrected. He felt like he was standing inside a very elegant nightmare. My species, she said, folding her hands behind her back, does not conceptualize interpersonal relationships as spontaneous phenomena. We treat them as strategic alignments. Strategic alignments? Yes. She turned slightly, and another display emerged. This one looked disturbingly like a corporate report. Bonding, she said, is categorized as a formal process involving compatibility testing, behavioral simulations, and long-term outcome projections. He raised a hand weakly. You're saying dating is like a business merger? Her eyes brightened faintly. That is an efficient analogy. He regretted speaking. She continued, her voice gaining momentum as if she were presenting to a board of directors instead of a terrified human. In most interspecies environments, she said, bonding occurs only after extensive evaluation. Emotional spontaneity is considered inefficient and destabilizing. He nodded slowly, pretending he understood words like destabilizing while internally screaming. According to corporate law, she said, any prolonged professional relationship that exhibits non-random emotional correlation must be reviewed by a supervisory authority or, if one party belongs to my species, by the senior individual involved. She looked at him again. I am the senior individual involved. He swallowed. So this is mandatory? Yes. So, I didn't do anything wrong? No. So, I'm not being fired? No. He felt an overwhelming urge to sit down, but there were no chairs. She moved again, and the hologram zoomed in on a specific section. A title appeared in bold characters. Species Compatibility Trial. He stared at it. This trial, she said, is designed to determine whether continued interaction between us poses a risk to organizational stability. He let out a breath that sounded suspiciously like laughter. You needed all this to figure that out? Yes. She tilted her head again, studying him. Your reaction, she said, is inconsistent with predicted human responses. What were you expecting? Fear. Denial. Defensive humor. He blinked. Okay, that's disturbingly accurate. She seemed satisfied. Another dataset appeared. This one looked less like a chart and more like a personality profile. Human Emotional Volatility Index. She read aloud. That sounds insulting. It is not intended to be. She paused. Then she added, it is, however, exceptionally high. He felt weirdly proud. She stepped closer to him this time. Not close enough to be inappropriate. Close enough to be noticeable. During the observation period, she said quietly, I attempted to interpret your behavior using standard models. And? They failed. Her voice dropped slightly. That outcome is statistically rare. He didn't know whether to apologize or celebrate. She turned back to the hologram and expanded another layer. This one was different. Less formal. Less structured. Almost messy. I initiated the bonding evaluation, she said. He froze. You did? Yes. Why? She didn't answer immediately. For the first time since he had entered the office, there was a pause that felt genuinely uncertain. I required clarification, she said finally. Clarification of what? She looked at him again. This time, she didn't seem to be analyzing data. She seemed to be looking at him. Clarification, she said, of why your presence produces effects that cannot be explained by logic. He felt something shift in the air. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just real. Somewhere behind them, the hologram continued to scroll through graphs and projections, but neither of them looked at it anymore. You humans, she said softly, do not treat bonding as a procedure. No, he said. What do you treat it as? He hesitated. Then he shrugged. Something that happens. She processed this. Her eyes flickered faintly. Something that happens, she repeated. Yes. That description is inefficient. Yeah, he said gently. That's kind of the point. She stared at him for several seconds. Then, slowly, she raised her hand again. The hologram changed one last time. This time, there were no charts. No graphs. No metrics. Only a single line of text, glowing quietly between them. Phase 1, direct interaction. She looked at him. The trial, she said, must now proceed beyond observation. He felt his heart beat faster. How? He asked. Her answer was simple. And somehow more terrifying than any graph. We talk, she said. Behind her, the entire corporate universe of data waited. Between them, something far less measurable had just begun. For several seconds after she said it, neither of them spoke. The word, talk, hovered between them like an unstable element. He had faced hostile alien negotiations, emergency project deadlines, and one memorable incident involving a malfunctioning gravity stabilizer in the cafeteria. None of that felt as dangerous as this quiet moment in her office. Talk, he repeated, mostly to make sure he had heard her correctly. Yes. Her tone was calm again, but something subtle had shifted. The precision was still there, yet beneath it was a faint tension, as if she were executing a protocol she did not fully trust. She gestured toward the hologram, and it transformed instantly. The clean corporate graphs dissolved into a new interface. A list appeared. Trial interaction parameters. He leaned closer despite himself. The first line lit up. Question 1. Define your internal response to my presence. He blinked. That's not a normal question. Correct. She watched him expectantly. He hesitated, searching for words that would not immediately destroy his career or his dignity. He said. I guess you're intimidating? She nodded once, as if checking off a data point. And? She asked. He shifted his weight. And impressive. Another nod. And, she said, her eyes narrowing slightly, why does your neural activity increase when I enter a shared space? He nearly choked. I didn't know you were monitoring my neural activity. That is irrelevant, she said. He rubbed the back of his neck. I don't know, he said carefully. People get nervous around their bosses? She tilted her head. That explanation is insufficient. The hologram reacted. A red indicator flashed beside his answer. Insufficient, she read aloud. He stared at the glowing word like it was a personal insult. She stepped closer again. Not aggressively. Not shyly. Just deliberately. You humans, she said, often respond to emotional stimuli with metaphor. Please provide one. A metaphor? Yes. He thought for a moment. Then he sighed. Fine, he said. It's like, when you walk into the room, everything else gets louder and quieter at the same time. The hologram froze. She did not move. Her eyes flickered. He wondered if he had broken something important. After several seconds, the system emitted a soft chime. A new label appeared next to his response. Unclassified phenomenon. She stared at it. Then she looked at him. That category did not exist prior to this conversation, she said. He wasn't sure whether to apologize. She returned to the interface and activated the next parameter. Question 2. Do you experience an instinct to protect me? He almost laughed. Protect you? He repeated. Yes. He glanced at her. She was taller than him, smarter than him, backed by an alien corporate empire, and surrounded by technology that could probably rewrite physics if it felt like it. From what? He asked. She considered this. Unpredictable variables, she said. He thought about it. About the way alien board members spoke to her like she was a tool rather than a person. About how everyone assumed she was invulnerable because she never showed uncertainty. Maybe, he admitted. Her eyes widened slightly. The hologram reacted instantly. A bright green line surged upward. Protective impulse detected, the system announced. He stared at it. She stared at it. Then she turned to him again. You did not hesitate, she said. You asked a weird question, he replied. That is not the same. She moved closer again. Now there was no doubt. This was not a corporate distance. This was a human distance. You are aware, she said quietly, that my species considers such impulses irrational? Yes, he said. Yet you experience them regardless. Yes. She studied him as if he were a puzzle that refused to obey mathematics. Question 3, she said. The hologram changed. This time, the text appeared more slowly. Do you perceive me as an individual beyond my functional role? He didn't answer immediately. She waited. He felt something tighten in his chest. You're not just my boss, he said finally. Her eyes sharpened. Explain. He hesitated. Then he shrugged slightly, trying to make it sound casual. You get tired, he said. You get annoyed. You get curious. You pretend you don't care about things you clearly care about. The hologram glitched. Literally glitched. For the first time since he had entered the office, the perfect visual system flickered. She didn't notice. She was too busy looking at him. That description, she said slowly, contradicts official psychological models of my species. Maybe your models are wrong. The word, wrong, seemed to echo in the room. She turned toward the hologram, her expression unreadable. System, she said. Recalculate compatibility projections using revised emotional parameters. The hologram pulsed. Data rearranged itself. Numbers surged. Curves bent in impossible ways. Then the system produced a single result. Probability of sustained interpersonal bonding, 97.3%. He stared at the number. She stared at the number. Either of them spoke. From somewhere outside the office, faint sounds of the corporate world drifted in, distant voices, soft mechanical hums, the quiet rhythm of a civilization built on logic. Inside the office, logic was losing ground. This result, she said finally, is unacceptable. He blinked. Unacceptable? Yes. Why? Because, she said, her voice quieter now, it exceeds all predictive thresholds. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. You're upset, he said. I am not, she replied instantly. The hologram flashed. Emotional contradiction detected. She froze. He raised an eyebrow. She slowly turned her head toward the system. Then back toward him. For the first time, she did not correct it. You humans, she said softly, possess a destabilizing influence. He smiled faintly. You say that like it's a bad thing. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped even closer. Now he could see details he had never noticed before, the subtle changes in her expression, the slight tension in her posture, the way her eyes reflected not data but uncertainty. According to my training, she said, this trial should proceed with controlled simulations. Simulations of what? She hesitated. Then she looked directly at him. Of what you call feelings. He felt his pulse accelerate. And what do you want? He asked gently. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, quietly, she said something that no graph could ever measure. I want to understand why your presence disrupts everything I thought I understood about myself. The hologram behind her continued to calculate probabilities. But for the first time, neither of them cared about the numbers. The silence that followed her words was not empty. It was full of things neither of them knew how to name. For a long moment, the only sound in the office was the soft hum of alien technology recalibrating itself, as if even the machines were confused by what was happening. He felt the urge to say something clever, something light, something that would pull them back into familiar territory. But nothing felt familiar anymore. Before he could speak, the room changed. The walls brightened abruptly. The hologram behind her fragmented into sharp, formal shapes. A new signal cut through the air, precise, authoritative, impossible to ignore. Her expression shifted. Not into fear. Into something colder. She turned toward the far wall, where a circular portal of light opened like a controlled fracture in reality. Figures emerged. They were not human. They were not quite like her either. Their forms were sharper, their movements synchronized, their presence heavy with the kind of authority that made gravity feel optional. He felt very small. Senior Executive Unit acknowledged, one of them said in a layered voice that sounded like several minds speaking through one throat. She straightened instantly. I acknowledge, she replied. Their eyes, or sensory organs, or whatever they used instead of eyes, shifted toward him. Human subject detected, another voice said. He resisted the urge to wave awkwardly. The bonding evaluation has triggered anomaly alerts across corporate oversight systems, the first figure said. Explain. She did not answer immediately. He noticed something strange. She hesitated. He had never seen her hesitate before. Explain, the figure repeated. She inhaled slowly. The evaluation, she said, has produced results that exceed predictive models. The figures exchanged silent signals. That is statistically improbable, one of them said. It is now statistically verified, she replied. They turned their attention to the hologram. Data flowed across the room again, but this time it felt invasive rather than impressive. Curves rose beyond expected thresholds. Indicators flashed in colors he had never seen before. Compatibility probability 97.3%, one figure read aloud. Emotional correlation exceeding interspecies norms, another added. Risk to organizational stability classified as high, the first concluded. He felt the word risk land like a weight. The figures looked at her. Protocol requires termination of destabilizing variables, they said. He stiffened. She did not move. Define termination, he asked quietly. None of them answered him. They didn't have to. She stepped forward. Just one step. It was small. It was everything. Request denied, she said. The room froze. The figures turned toward her simultaneously. Clarify, they said. I will not terminate the variable, she said calmly. Their voices deepened. Your role is to preserve corporate equilibrium, they said. Emotional deviation is unacceptable. She looked at them. Then she looked at him. For a fraction of a second, her expression was not logical, not strategic, not corporate. It was human. You evaluate humans as systems, she said. That is your error. The figures reacted instantly. Humans are systems, one said. All sentient beings are systems. Yes, she said. But humans are systems that choose. The word choose seemed to confuse them more than any data anomaly. He did not follow predictable patterns, she continued. He did not respond according to models. He did not optimize outcomes. She paused. He felt. The room was very quiet. Feeling is inefficient, the figure said. Correct, she said. They waited for her to continue. She did. I am inefficient, she said. He felt his breath catch. The figures processed this statement. Your inefficiency represents a threat, they said. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. It represents discovery. The hologram reacted again, but this time she did not look at it. She looked at him. He felt like the entire galaxy had narrowed down to the space between them. You humans, she said softly, do not ask permission to care. He shrugged faintly. We're bad at following instructions. For a moment, something like amusement flickered across her face. The figures did not understand it. Final recommendation, they said. Sever interpersonal interaction. Reassign human subject. Reset emotional parameters. She did not respond immediately. Instead, she turned fully toward him. Her voice lowered. This trial, she said, was designed to measure compatibility. Yeah, he said quietly. It has succeeded beyond acceptable limits, she said. That sounds like a good thing, he replied. She studied him. You are aware, she said, that continued interaction may destabilize established interspecies frameworks? He thought about it. Then he nodded. Probably, he said. She considered this. Then she turned back to the figures. I accept destabilization, she said. The figures reacted with immediate alarm. Such a decision contradicts every operational directive, they said. Yes, she said simply. They paused. Then, slowly, their forms began to dissolve into light. Your decision will be recorded, they said. Its consequences will be monitored. The portal closed. Silence returned. This time, it felt different. Not tense. Not threatening. Just open. The hologram behind her collapsed into a single point of light and disappeared. For the first time since he had entered the office, there were no graphs, no metrics, no projections. Just two individuals standing in a room that had never been designed for honesty. She looked at him. Not as a boss. Not as a representative of a superior species. Just as herself. The bonding evaluation, she said, is officially inconclusive. He smiled slightly. Unofficially? She hesitated. Then she said something that no corporate algorithm could have predicted. Unofficially, she said, I would like to continue the trial without oversight. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds suspiciously like a date. She processed the word. Her eyes flickered. Then she nodded once. Yes, she said. That is an acceptable translation. He felt something warm spread through his chest. Somewhere in the building, an alarm sounded faintly, then shut itself off. Somewhere in the galaxy, alien analysts probably began rewriting entire theories about human nature. Inside the office, something much simpler happened. She extended her hand. He looked at it. Then he took it. Her grip was steady. Not calculated. Not measured. Just real. As they stood there, the universe outside continued to run on logic, efficiency, and perfect predictability. But inside that quiet room, an alien executive and a human employee had just done something far more dangerous than breaking corporate law. They had chosen each other. And for the first time in the history of interspecies relations, no one had any idea what would happen next.